So overall, how have you been doing throughout the pandemic? It's crazy times over here. I'm in Canada, but North America is ridiculous. So what's it like over there?
Yeah, much the same. Like, obviously, when it first kicked off, yeah, it was a very crazy world. Everyone was sort of, always, a bit unsure as to what was happening. Obviously, businesses were closing down, people were dying, like we were in quarantine. Yeah, it is definitely a very crazy world and a very crazy time to be living in. We do have one of our states, Victoria, down south, that's in like full lockdown at the moment, just because their cases spiked and it's running pretty rampant down there. So, and we've got border closures between Queensland and New South Wales where you can't go interstate. It's where we are for the most part. Like, daily life, is pretty normal. But yeah, obviously, COVID's still very much on the top of everyone's minds.
How has it impacted your training? Obviously, I mean, you haven't fought in a little while, but how has training been throughout the entire thing?
Well, I'm lucky at the moment. So for a while, their gyms had closed down, I'm lucky because I've got a full gym set up in my garage. So yeah, we were doing a lot of training, and I'd have teammates and coaches come around to my house, and I'd just have more specific sessions, which kind of suited me. It was awesome. I was lucky I was able to do that. So we trained the whole way through COVID. And now gyms are open back up, so they've been open for a while now. So yeah, training is as per normal.
I'm glad we ended up pushing this interview a little bit because we started talking a little bit before the announcement. Now it's been announced. So how does it feel to know you're fighting for the featherweight title against someone like Cris Cyborg?
Oh, well, as I've said in other interviews, this fight alone sort of wraps up 4 career goals, like winning this Bellator world title and obviously beating Cris Cyborg. And yeah, it encapsulates a lot of, makes me a dual champion in combat sports with being a boxing world champion and a MMA world champion. So yeah, there's a lot of drive for me to, obviously achieve and succeed in this fight. So yeah, being the underdog even makes it even more rewarding.
How did you get the news? Like, who was it that called you, and how excited were you when you found out?
Well, we kind of knew about it because obviously Cris and Julia fought earlier in the year, and Scott Coker made dropped some hints as to who would be next in line, which we've been working hard since dropping that split decision loss to Julia back in 2017. So yeah, we did what we had to do, which was beat whoever was put in front of me. And for the most part, there was some quick finishes and some impressive wins and that. So yeah, we just stayed on our path. And I mean, if Cris hadn't have been signed, I would have got a shot at the title earlier, but it just worked in my favor, the fact that she came over from the UFC, and now I get that fight rather than everyone was always saying, when are you going to fight Cris Cyborg, when are you going to fight Amanda Nunes? It's like, well, they're in a different promotion. I'm staying on my path. This is Bellator's where I belong, and that's where I'm signed to. So yeah, it all worked in my favor in the sense that I've been chasing that fight with Cris for a long time now, and we've been preparing for it, obviously both physically and mentally, since the beginning of the year when we found out.
I've heard interviews from guys like Alexander Gustafsson when they fought John Jones, and he's like, I don't even care about the title. I want to beat John Jones, to be able to say I've beat the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
You're in a very similar position where Cris Cyborg, to many, is the greatest female combat sport athlete of all time. Does it feel to you like that's bigger than the title, or are you just, the world title still means more to you than a win over Cris Cyborg?
No, it's all much the same. Like I said, it's career goals that I've written up a long time ago. So yeah, the fight itself and the fact that it's all come about in this way. So like I said, I would have been fighting for the Bellator world title against Julia if Cris hadn't have been signed. But I feel like even though I've got unfinished business with Julia, that fight's still very much a fight that I want as well. But I just feel like it's all just fallen into place, and this is meant to be. So, the fight itself, being for the world title, being against Cris Cyborg, being that it's going to, tick off some of my career goals and set, my legacy in place. It just all means everything.
I want to, you know, a lot of people like to talk about their wins, but I want to focus on those two losses to Julia. They were both very, very close. What is the biggest lessons you've learned from those fights that's going to help you come October?
Yeah, so the first fight with Julia, like it was a loss, in saying that though I was carrying a pretty severe injury coming into that fight. So for me, you know, there was a lot of times during fight camp where I was, you know, I considered sort of pulling out, but it's not anything that I've done in fights before. I've carry injuries, and I've had a lot of opponents pull out on me in the past, and I know it's a horrible feeling to get that news. And I just have always thought that that's not the fighter that I'm going to be. Like, I fight, you know, rain, hail, or shine, pretty much. Because my take on it is, you know, the gladiators used to fight back in the day, and they were never feeling. Well, on behalf of them were starving most of the time, but yeah, like they were never feeling in top shape, let alone have a chance to train for 10 weeks before a fight for fighting to the death. So yeah, that's a mindset I've always had. So yeah, I carried a severe injury coming into that fight. So for me, there was a lot of mental hurdles that I overcome myself personally. So to get in there and compete and not look like a total mess in there, like, I mean, you wouldn't even know I was carrying an injury. So apart from I was carrying a little bit of extra weight, that was, I made weight, but I looked terrible. I was out of condition just because obviously fight camp wasn't what it was normally like. But the second fight for the world title, like looking back, obviously it was a split decision and very, very close. And, you know, my corner and my coaches who were with me then at that fight, you know, had sort of assured me that I'd done enough, and I thought I'd done enough. But in saying that, the lesson that I took is that even when you think you've done enough, you should do more. Like, I walked out of a 5-round fight and could have gone, you know, another 5 rounds. Well, maybe not another 5 rounds, probably wouldn't do it. But like, yeah, for me, and especially with Cris, I know that this fight and that, you know, fighting Julie is also a tough fight. But I mean, Cris is, you know, a beast of a fighter, and yeah, I'll be walking. Actually, yeah, if it need be, I'll be getting carried out of the cage. I will leave it all in there, and I think that was the biggest thing that I had to overcome after losing, was that I hadn't prepared. Well, you don't prepare yourself to lose, but yeah, I wasn't losing that fight. But the fact that when I did lose it, I was disappointed that I just didn't give it everything. I should have given it more, just to, you know, cement in the judge's eyes that I won.
You've it's been a year since you last fought. I know that lots happened with the pandemic and whatnot. Yeah. How do you think ring rust is gonna play a factor both with you and Cris? I mean, it's neither one of you guys have really been overly active, so it will affect both of you. But how do you think it's going to impact your performance?
Well, I think with everything that's going on anyway, it's going to be a whole new environment. As in, we're fighting without a crowd. Yeah. So it doesn't. Yeah, it's different. You know, COVID's changing or has changed how our fight week's going to go. You know, it's all, you know, the quarantine, the fight sphere, like it's going to be different anyway. So I don't think, you know, it wouldn't have mattered if we fought, you know, 4 months ago and it was, you know, like normal. This is still going to be different anyway. So it's something that, you know, I've mentally prepared for. And at the end of the day, I'm like, fight camp for me, I've changed things up a lot. I'm throwing myself in the deep end. Like, I'm actually down in Wollongong at the moment training with Alex Volkanovski and his team, and man, they feel like I'm having a fight every night when I'm jumping in, like, you know, sessions with them. So yeah, like, you know, I was over in America in March, and I started a bit of a training camp over there with Holly, and the plan was to go back over and train at Jackson's and do it like a full camp there. And obviously it would have worked out perfect because she's in fight camp for her fight in October. But quarantine COVID and everything just kind of left things up in the air as to be able to plan like a proper camp and have dates set, because we just really didn't know what was happening. So, but yeah, no, for the most part, like, I think, yeah, I mean, you can't, obviously competition's ideal, but for the most part, I've been training hard enough and throwing myself mentally into the hard sessions that, you know, there shouldn't be too much ring rust.
I want to talk a little bit about your legacy. And, you know, when you think about Australian MMA, Mark Hunt, you're right there. There's all these, you know, big names in Australia. What's the one message that you'd have for up and comers, both male and female, that look up to you?
Just stay on the path. Like, I'm the first one. I've had a roller coaster of a career, and by no means am I, at one stage I had more losses than I did wins, and but yeah, you just stay true to yourself and the goal. Like, this is, like, especially if you love it and you have a passion for it, which you have to be in combat sports. It's a hard thing, but with anything in life, nothing's going to be smooth sailing. So you just stick with it, and take each training session, each day, day by day, session by session. Like, you try not to focus. I've made the mistake in the past to focus on the end goal. So, for example, this fight would be, focusing on the end fight, which is fighting Cris Cyborg, becoming the world champion. But I've been training this for a long time, but say in the 10 weeks leading up to it, breaking each day down, each session down, and enjoying, because every session or every day has a beautiful lesson or message in it that you can stop and appreciate and take that. Whereas if you just wish that 10 weeks away and focus only on the fight itself, you'll miss all of these little things along the 10 weeks. And for someone like me too, who is a little bit older and somewhat towards the end of her career, I'm not saying I'm at the end of my career, but one day I'm going to look back. Well, I do sort of focus on life after fighting too, but one day I'll look back on these moments and miss being in fight camp, miss being around my teammates, miss the sore body, probably won't miss that part, but miss being an elite athlete that's physically fit, that's at the top of a game. And they're all the little things that you need to stop and appreciate, because this doesn't last forever, and you can't just rely on only enjoying being under the bright lights, because there's so much more to it.
So Australian MMA right now, I think, is at its peak. It's bigger than it's ever been. You guys like Robert Whittaker, Izzy, the list goes on and on. There's so many names. Alexander Volkanovski, another one. Why do you think right now Australian MMA is booming? Do you think it was people like you, people like Mark Hunt, Daniel Kelly, that really started this rise in Australian MMA? Or why do you think now is the time that you're starting to see so much success from Australian MMA fighters?
I think it's just the way that the sport's evolved too. And I was listening, so my coach James DeHuda, he was another one that paved the way for like fighters. He was in the early days of UFC, and I was listening to an interview of his last night, and he was even saying that like he was at the beginning of UFC sort of thing, and he would watch like a film clip or see a newspaper article or read something in a magazine and he'd cut it out, or he'd just, watch it and replay it over and over. Whereas now there is so much content on, techniques and skills and drilling and the access that we have to each other. So like, I could fly over. I've been to Jackson Winks a few times and trained there. I've trained over at Tiger Muay Thai. We all can sort of, interchange knowledge, and I just feel like we realize now that and we've got some really good coaches here in Australia too, and by no means is there any reason why an Australian is any less athletic than anyone else in the world. We've just put our heads down, and there's amazing fighters all over the world, and it's just that was always how it was going to happen once sort of they stepped off the American shores and found all these fighters from around the world.
One of the things I've always noticed about Australian fighters is they may go do a training camp in the United States, or like you mentioned, in Thailand or wherever it may be, but they always end up back home. When you think about guys like Michael Bisping, they go and they move to the U.S. Lots of Brazilian fighters move to the U.S. Why do you think that is? Is it just you're proud of being Australian, you want the success to come from the camps in Australia? Why do you think that is?
Not giving any disrespect to any other country, but we live in a beautiful country. We're very, very lucky to be Australians. Our government system, our medical system, everything, and it's just a beautiful country. We've got coastline all around us. But I guess for me, it was never a question to even think about moving overseas. I've got a family. I've got 2 children. They're in school and everything like that. And for the most part, Rob Whittaker's got a family here. Alex Volkanovski's got a family here. It's not. We do have some, international fighters. I know, Megan Anderson moved over to America. Jessie Jess is over there. But yeah, like I guess because we've just got the chance to go over and travel and do fight camps and then come home and be with our families and live our lives here. And but in saying that, we've got some awesome gyms here in Australia too that allow us to be able to train and do what we need to do here.
I'll ask you a couple more and then I'll let you get going to training. So the 145-pound division is probably the shallowest overall in women's MMA. Why do you think that is? And how do you think what's the best way for both Bellator or UFC? How do they grow these divisions?
Well, I guess that was just, once upon a time, the bantamweight division, was the be all and end all, obviously because of the Ronda era. I guess the UFC, it's a shallow division, but Bellator have got a fair few, 145 girls signed. So it's just a matter of, I think, female MMA's obviously been on the grow, like up and up since, when I first started. So, you'll probably see in another 5 or 10 years, there'll be more girls coming up, through. It's a more common thing to see, females in the gym training. And obviously the more these younger generations see, females on the world stage and, fighting on the main event, fighting main card, fighting for world titles. And, there's going to be more interest in it. So I think it'll be something that just grows, hopefully.
All right, I'll ask you one last question, non-MMA related. So obviously you've fought for a long time. What sorts of things do you do outside of MMA to kind of keep your mind occupied, especially during the hard times of the past year or so?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a good divide in, it's funny because I'm actually waiting because there's a lot of haters on the MMA scene that follow it. So, even when the Cris Cyborg fight got announced, it was like, oh, I know Cris Cyborg by murder, and obviously I'm not getting a lot of credit for what I've done and this and that, and it's all part of the sport. I don't care. I don't take anyone on board, but I do promote the fact I'm a soccer mum. My son's a very, very good soccer player that's going to go places in his career, and you know what? I'm a soccer mum. But I'm a mother of 2 kids. They take up my time and a lot of my attention and focus. Because like I said in another interview, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I do in my fight career. Nothing will ever past the fact that I'm a mum. That's my number one priority. I'm a partner too. He's my other priority. So family life very much takes, our household at the moment obviously is very much focused on the fact that I've got to fight, but we do a very good job of, both my partner and my son are both soccer players. So they spend a lot of time training every week as well. So when we get home, the last thing we want to talk about is soccer or fighting. Obviously it comes up in conversations, not close the door and be like, that's it, you don't talk about it. Just you talk about work or whatever. But, I've got a job, he's got jobs. I've got other little side things that I do in life. I coach, I mentor. I do little do DIY projects at home. I read, meditate. I'm still very much a girl. And it's one of the comments that I sort of made to someone the other day, that, you meet up with someone and the first question's always like, how's training going, or when's your next fight, or it's always very fight-based. I'm like, I'm a person too. So, it's either that or how's the kids? And I was like, okay, what about just normal me? But I've very much got a personal life outside of fighting, and I can separate myself from the two of them, which is good.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much for the time. I know you're extremely busy now. I think we're a month out today. Oh, today. I don't know what date is there, but we're about a month out. So I know you're extremely busy. So I really appreciate you taking the time. All the best with training. Stay safe, and I'm rooting for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
All right. All the best.